To celebrate the fact that it has been 2 weeks since the conclusion of the Skylanders Supercharger Noir Lock, we're going to take a blast of the past and look at an old top 10 video I created entitled the Top 10 Supercharger Combinations, so that then those of you who missed out on that video when it first dropped can see it in all of its glorious glory after the intro has played itself out, mind you. So once again, this is a video that I have uploaded already, but I have gone back, re-edited it, remastered it, and basically just made it even better for you guys to enjoy a second time around. As you can see before you, the 5th Skylanders game, Skylanders Superchargers, presented us with a great many Supercharger combinations, and so that's exactly what this Top 10 Thursday is going to be counting down. The Top 10 Best Skylanders Superchargers combinations, which is going to be based on how well the two units fit in with one another on a design and colour palette standpoint, as well as physical and digital properties of both units. And of course, if one unit is a weak link, then that's going to result in the whole combination not working as well as it potentially has, mind you. So by physical factors, I of course mean the actual playability with the toy counterparts, as well as how awesome the toys actually look. And then the digital properties is how fun they are to play in a game and how great that translation is from the figurine to the game, mind you. So without further ado, let's get into the top 10 countdown. Sorry dude, you're not in this one. Starting us off here, we have Thrillipede and the Buzzwing. Now what I really love about this combination is first of all the colour palettes match up, with the slight nitpick being that the Buzzwing has black on it rather than brown, so I wish that Thrillipede's costume here was black rather than brown, so then the colour palettes could mix up even more than they do already. But as it stands, that's a pure nitpick from the Supercharger perspective, and the Buzzwing does significantly improve when it's supercharged by Thrillipede as well to create a really awesome looking sky vehicle. So I love these two together on the shelf because of that blend of colour palettes and everything, and the fact that the two do look like they come mutually together, mind you, so the fact that they feel so connected and bonded even as driver and vehicle is a really cool aesthetic. But ultimately it's not my favourite Supercharger combination because each element of it is kind of flawed in its own unique way, such as Thrillipede not having the greatest moveset, although I do love the fact that he hits enemies at 360 degrees. That's very effective and very unique. So overall he's a character I like, I just don't love it. And it's not unique either in the fact that it utilises more than 4 limbs like several characters before it, including Slam Bam and Washbuckler. And then the Buzzwing itself, whilst being a really damn cool vehicle and also a really great toy with the fact that you can flick it out at the push of a button, it's not great in game, however, and it's one of my least favourite Sky vehicles because of it. So overall, this Supercharger combination is great, but there's definitely areas for improvement, and hence why it's number 10 on the list for those reasons, I should say. For number 9, we have Nightfall and the Sea Shadow. Now, once again, I love the unison in terms of the colour palettes here. Both of them have pinks and greens, which really glimmer thanks to the glitter utilised. So they definitely fit their elements and each other with the colour palettes utilised. And the Sea Shadow is just such a damn cool vehicle in terms of its design. It having the kind of wing type things here is very unique for a sea vehicle, and overall just looks pretty damn epic. Unfortunately, it doesn't control very well, and Nightfall herself is a good Skylander, but not a great one. So ultimately this Supercharger combination looks once again in unison and great with one another, but unfortunately once again both units aren't great, hence why it's number 9 on the list right here. Next up for number 8, we have Stormblade and the Sky Slicer. Now both of these units have the exact same colour palette, that being blue, orange and white for the most part, and both of them maintain the same theming of extremely sharp blades, mind you. You literally have Stormblade's sword piercing through the camera here as if it's 3D, and I love that amount of depth to it. And the Sky Slicer itself sure is a damn cool looking vehicle, but unfortunately it doesn't have any sort of gimmicks or mechanics to it that makes it a great toy, and it's awfully chunky as well, adding a lot of weight to it. Therefore, it's not friendly to being a toy and is quite bland as just a generic old jet. I just love the minor details on it, such as the little cut on the blade right there, and of course the scratches and everything back here. It's just well detailed, it just didn't make for a great toy. However, Stormblade on the other hand is a really great character in game, with her speed and accuracy making her really fun and effective in combat. So ultimately she lifts this combination all the way up to number 8 solo-handedly. So if that Sky Slicer was a better toy, then it could easily have risen up ranks of this top 10 list. For number 7, we have Lava Lanceruptor and the Burn Cycle. Now, I love the aesthetic going on here because Lava Lanceruptor truly looks like he's a biker, and so he rides a bike. It's very, very cool design and very matching of the two designs, mind you. Now, the Burn Cycle is a very unique design, unlike the Sky Slicer even, so that's why I call it a better vehicle. Plus, in-game it has the boosts and the fireballs, which are very powerful and very useful attacks, especially when you want to hit enemies away at a distance or speed yourselves up with, or whilst maintaining handling, I should say. But unfortunately, just like the Sky Slicer, it doesn't make for a very good toy, which is why it's as low as it is, because its back end kind of drags with it only having a wheel on the front end. Therefore, the lack of playability with the actual toy aspect is very disappointing. However, Lava Lanceruptor and the improvements made to the design and making him look more like a biker to go alongside the bike is a very cool aesthetic. And in-game, he's also the best iteration of Ruptor we've ever got, since he has a great blend of speed and power, making him an absolute blast to play as, just like his vehicle, mind you. So these characters are truly more gameplay based than physical based, because Lava Lanceruptor really doesn't have the greatest design besides that bike aesthetic that they added to him. He's still just a giant blob with lava hands and feet, which is the most unique thing on this list. Next up, we have Deep Dive Gilgrin and the Reef Ripper. Now, unfortunately, the Reef Ripper doesn't really suit Gilgrin all that much, in my personal opinion, purely because the shade of blue utilised is too different from the original design. So if they changed up that shade of blue, it definitely could have been more fitting. However, what's really fun about this toy is just taking it and then just swiggling it around. It makes a really annoying crackling noise, so it's great to just go up next to someone's ear and start going ham with the vehicle. So the amount of fun that that creates is truly what elevates this vehicle and this Supercharger combination, because both elements, or units I should say, more so than elements, since they're both of water element, but as I digress, both units are really fun in game. Deep Dive Gilgrin is effective by having a variety of different attacks, both melee and range, to create for a lot of variation in how you play him, and a lot of fun to avoid the repetitive stance of other movesets, mind you. So all I'm saying here is that his variety makes him fun, and the Reef Ripper is easily one of the best handling vehicles of the sea terrain, mind you. It actually improves the gameplay of those sections significantly, and so I really appreciate the Reef Ripper for having that handling and being a really fun vehicle on top of that. Therefore, this is definitely a great Supercharger combination, with the exception of the shade of blue that the Reef Ripper utilised, and plus the little annoying trope of the Reef Ripper's toy elements can also be used against you, so there's also the disadvantage of that, because it's fun whilst you're doing it to others, but then as soon as others start doing it to you, the fun is significantly decreased, to say the least. For number 5, we have Bone Bash Roller Brawl and her vehicle, the Tomb Buggy, and this is the perfect example of a simple theme done right, and that is of course the theme of bones. Since Bone Bash Roller Brawl, as the name would suggest, has an awesome piece of bone armor surrounding her head, her torso, and her legs, so on and so forth. And she's also on roller skates, which of course emphasizes this theming of speed that the game Superchargers is all about. So I love the fact that these definitely fit into the whole game's aesthetic and theming, and plus the two vehicles really match up together on an aesthetic level, with both of them utilizing bones to their advantage. Unfortunately, Bone Bash Roller Brawl has a lot of pink on her, whilst the Tomb Buggy has none of that, so unfortunately the pink kind of goes to waste, because there was definitely some potential to use pink somewhere on the Tomb Buggy, and unfortunately they didn't wind up utilising it besides for weaponry, which makes the vehicle really fun in game and very fun to handle, needless to say. And Bone Bash Rollerball is just like that as well, and the fact that she's got some really varied gameplay, some fast-paced gameplay, and overall she's also a blaster player, so these two do work really well together, but the theming is quite simple, as I alluded to before, even if it does work, and the vehicle is lacking that pink colour, which is so abundant on Rollerball, but those are really the only flaws I can find with this Supercharger combination, which is ultimately really fun, and better yet, the physicality of it is fantastic, at least for one unit. Rollerball's arms a little too flimsy, so that makes the figurine quality a little less great. However, the Tomb Buggy is really fun to roll around like an actual toy, mind you. The wheels work really, really well. Now we have Astro Blast and the Sunrunner, which work perfectly with one another because they're both themings of their own elements, that being the light element, with colour palettes that perfectly match that element as well as one another, and both of them also have that futuristic-y based aesthetic. Therefore, since their theming matches each other so well, it means that these characters distinctly belong with one another. You couldn't match up the Sunrunner with another character just because Astro Blast fits it so well. It is ultimately what I'm saying here. But who safety checked this toy? Seriously, it's got spikes all over it. That is not safe to play with, and it's not a very ideal toy, even if it looks so damn cool in the game, and it's a lot of fun to utilize in the game. But speaking of fun, that's one thing Astro Blast is not. Now, I've not fully upgraded him yet, but right out of the box, he's incredibly weak, and his moveset feels highly uninspired with a simple laser gun and a backflip kick, which several Skylanders possess already, so the unoriginality there, despite how much originality went into the design, is ultimately disappointing, even if it isn't bad. So that's always going to mean that Astro Blast and his highly dangerous vehicle, the Sunrunner, isn't going to get any lower on the list than number 4, mind you. Next up, we have Hammerslam Bowser and the Clown Cruiser. And what's really cool about this combination is the blend of the original Nintendo designs with the cartoony Skylanders aesthetics. So the intertextuality is fantastic, and that interweaving with Skylanders cartoon aesthetics to make them really fit in amongst the Skylanders cast is just a great example of awesome adapted design work. So you can tell right out of the bat even that this is a very well designed combination that works really well together. Unfortunately, the Clown Cruiser's shade of green doesn't really match up with Bowser all that well, so I don't really appreciate that much. They're trying to give it a glossy finish rather than a more fitting finish, so that's highly disappointing. But ultimately, it's the intertextuality even, and the nostalgia that it manages to execute so perfectly that makes this combination so great. Not to mention, the vehicle itself is incredibly fun in game, and as is Bowser's moveset. It's fast-paced, it's fluid, and combos together very, very well to make for a very, very fun character to utilize, to say the least. I have an absolute blast playing as Hammerslam Bowser in the game, and it's easy to see why. Number 2 is Splat and the Splatter Splasher, which once again very aesthetically fit together very well, such as the see-through purple plastic on both figurines right there, as well as the purples and the goldens used in both colour palettes. So of course there is the aesthetic similarities there, which means that ultimately you couldn't pair up another Supercharger with the Splatter Splasher because Splat fits it so well and so uniquely. And not to mention, it's also a really, really cool and well-designed toy as well, especially with how the mold comes together with these two elements being separated from the central piece of plastic, as you can see underneath there. It's a very well-made toy, needless to say, and once again, it has those awesome details to definitely help skyrocket it up the list right here, such as these little cuts and scratches that would come from all of the combat that vehicle would have endured. And the vehicle itself has a moveset which is definitely highly resemblant of Splat, which is really, really cool to see. I'm glad that they have similar movesets, especially when the movesets in and of themselves are so fantastic. So having it replicated twice, I have no problems with whatsoever, because Splat, once again, has the perfect blend of speed, range, melee, and power. So that makes her very fast-paced and very fun to utilize. And her design is just awesome, like a fawn character with a frickin' paintbrush. That is really unique design if I've ever seen it. So good, in fact, that Splatoon ripped it off, because clearly this game was in development for much longer. That's probably a lie knowing me, but regardless. Point is, it's just so awesome, and I adore it to that extent that it's really worthy of a number 2 slot right here, to say the least. But number one, without a doubt, is Double Dare, Trigger Happy, and his Gold Rusher. Trigger Happy has always been a character all about gold, so having a vehicle that utilises gold in its name is so befitting of his personality, making it so that, once again, these two units are the only ones that can truly go together to supercharge one another. It's very fantastic design work right here to help truly express Trigger Happy's personality in a way we've never seen it before. And not to mention, the additions created to his design is also very much welcomed. I love his new costume. That in and of itself is very well designed, especially with the line work and the oranges and the whites even coming together to create a very contrasting colour palette, which, once again, fits in with the Gold Rusher very, very well. The Gold Rusher is also a very fun toy to play with, and once again it's got that really awesome design work with these pieces of plastic kind of like going in between the 4 sets of wheels, looking awesome in all of that glory, mind you. So it's a well-made toy, it looks cool, it's fun to play as, same with Trigger Happy. But what about their in-game counterparts? Well, Double Dare Trigger Happy is easily the best iteration of Trigger Happy we've ever gotten, with his signature button mashing style remaining, but with a better combination of fireworks and cannon based attacks that make him more fast paced and varied to utilise. And the Gold Rusher itself is so overpowered, with barrels that are an absolute torture to drivers both behind and in front of you, and an overpowered blast, making it the perfect vehicle to use in any situation. Therefore, this truly is the greatest supercharger combination in the game. So that's going to do it for this list from the channels past. As a reminder, the number one supercharger combination was Double Dare Trigger Happy, and this guy over here. So regardless, I hope you enjoyed that blast of the past. And I keep calling it blast of the past because not only is it a cool way to reference, you know, what existed in the past and is now being brought to the present, but also these things remind me of Hot Wheels. And Hot Wheels created a series known as Hot Wheels Battle Force 5, a TV show I loved as a kid, which also had an episode entitled Blast of the Past. So I suppose, you know, a top 10 with supercharged vehicles referencing you know, series from the Hot Wheels lineup about vehicles, and the, you know, little link you can create between those two things is beyond appropriate. But moving away from all that, with this video coming to an end, I sure hope you all enjoyed it. And with that being said and done, I will see you when the next video arises. But until that very moment, peace. And thank you so much as always for watching.